roughly 6 months ago, I made a video about matching the Sony A7 III camera to S-Cinetone off the FX9. I'll put a link to it up there. It went down really well. In fact, I've been inundated with 3 or 4 requests to do the same again for the A7S Mark III. So I have. This took me many days of studying charts and scopes and calibrated monitors, but I won't make this video too long because I know you're only really interested in tapping in the numbers. Ta-da! Before I get onto the numbers, there's a couple of points which might help you match your A7S III to an FX6 or an FX9 when shooting S-Cinetone, for those days when you want to use your pictures straight out of the box. Firstly, it looks like Sony have slightly tweaked S-Cinetone on the new FX6. Skin tones look slightly less green than the S-Cinetone we get out of an FX9, and I'm hoping that this slight colour shift can be easily incorporated into a future FX9 firmware upgrade. However, I'm also wondering if it might end up having something to do with the unique way the FX9 performs a white balance. Which brings me neatly onto the second point. Whatever cameras you're trying to match, the colour profile settings on the A7S III will be mostly pointless unless you also match your colour balance between the cameras. And my FX9 is notoriously twitchy when it comes to reading an accurate white. If I don't completely fill the screen with an even shade of perfectly exposed grey or white, I can get some very strange tints to the colour. I've never owned a camera that is so fussy about how you do a white balance. Well, not since the Hitachi SK91 of 1983. Even when I do fill the screen with a perfect white, I can get different results each time I press the button. You might think this is only tiny differences to the numbers, but sometimes you can see it, especially on the scopes. This is weird because the A7S III nails a perfect white every time. It only needs a tiny patch in the centre of your frame and it's got it, spot on. So that's another thing we'd like Sony to sort out in the FX9 firmware. I'd like the white balance to perform as well as it does on the A7S III. The final issue was kindly raised by Alistair Chapman after my initial A7 III video. He pointed out that S-Cinetone on the FX9 was doing clever things to the contrast levels, depending on your exposure. Well, that sounds like a dedicated gamma curve to me. I have no idea if Sony will ever give A7S III users the original S-Cinetone gamma curve to play with. But what are they worried about? Do they think Cinetone on the A7S III will take sales away from the FX6 or even the FX9? Or is it just a political argument between cinema and consumer divisions somewhere in Sony? It could happen that one day we'll see an official S-Cinetone for the A7S III from Sony. We know it's easily possible because the FX6 uses the same sensor and the same processors. So hopefully maybe. Until that day arrives, my settings are as close as I can get. I might just have revealed Bournemouth's secret rocket program, but I'm quite proud of the way those pictures match. I think they're better than the original A7 III settings. But the real test is with let's move this stick out of the way. The real test is with skin tones. So what do you think? You have to match exposure as closely as you can, and if you're using an FX9, you really need to nail that white balance. If you fancy seeing for yourself, these are the settings I'm using right now. I'm using the memory position at picture profile 9, but you can use any one you want. So going through each setting in turn, I've set the black level to -10, the gamma is with Cine 4, and I've got the black gamma using a wide range level -1. The knee, for your highlights, I've got in manual mode 100% with a slope of 0. And this is a new setting. I've got the colour mode set to Pro. I don't think that was a choice on the A7 III. Saturation I've set to -1. The colour phase is also set to -1. And now the important bit to get the colour depth right. I've got red at +1, green +2, and blue at 0. Cyan +1, magenta +1, and yellow also +1. The detail level, I've got it set to -7. I might have put days and days of work into this, but seriously, I'm not precious about it at all. If you have alternative suggestions, then do please let us know in the comments below. And if you've found a better way, I'm happy to change things and add your settings to the description. The closer we get, the more pressure we can put on Sony to give us a real version of Cinetone for the A7S III. Until then, do let me know if these settings work for you. Give them a try, and if they work well, all I ask is you consider subscribing. I'm not going to beg. I've just watched The Social Dilemma, so I'll understand if you'd rather not.